Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome everyone to Bezerra Spiritual Healing Center. We welcome all faiths, denominations, religions, philosophies. So please feel a big welcome from us and let us, please share with us any questions or comments you may have. And before we begin our service, we always start with an opening prayer. And I believe we have a volunteer this morning to do the opening prayer.
So let us close. Thank you, Teresa. Let us close our eyes and let us focus and ground ourselves first in our physical bodies with our feet on the ground, saying hello to Mother Earth, connecting to our breath, taking deep inhales and equally deep exhales. And as we maintain the breath, we'll say hello to our heart and our heart center, this beautiful center that keeps us connected to all realms, to all kingdoms, in a loving and kind way. And let us now connect to our mental center and saying hello to God, merciful God, first cause of all things. And let us say hello to Jesus, our beautiful guide and model. And let us also warmly welcome the mentors of this group, Dr. Becerra, and the healing doctors and mentors like Dr. Paolo, Dr. Rudolfo, Dr. Augusto, Sister Sheila, Dr. Filomeno de Miranda, and all the other mentors that tirelessly work for the good of all, to keep us together as a group, to keep us focused on charity. As we know, there is no salvation without charity. Let us embrace all the familiar spirits as well, and all the spirits that, like us, are here today, meeting to open our hearts and minds to new lessons that our dear sister Kiki, with the help of her mentors, will transmit to us. And we pray that we will stay focused and aligned with each other, send the message, and all the beautiful spirits on high. And with so much gratitude, we humbly ask for permission to begin today's session. And so be it. And so it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunshine, for the beautiful prayer. And so our services are divided into two parts from the teaching we received from Emmanuel, who is the spirit mentor of Chico Xavier, that we fly, our spirit flies by two wings, that of intelligence and that of charity, love. So the beginning part of our program is based on a presentation in which we can enlighten ourselves and learn some more of a learning opportunity. And the second part will be based on service, which is the virtual passes and healing. And before we begin, we will share some announcements. And here we have it that every day at 6 p.m. and all these times are in Pacific Standard Time. We have a daily prayer. All are welcome to join. Simply come back to this Zoom link and you will be joining us for the prayer. You can listen if you don't feel comfortable praying. You can listen and follow along in silence. Then every day, except Friday and Saturday, we have some type of learning service where we can all nourish our souls, so to speak, right? So Monday, there is an internal healing service. So if you know of anyone, loved ones, neighbors who are in need of prayers, please let us know. You can simply write their name in the chat if you'd like, or contact one of us, or you can send an email. You can list it in the WhatsApp group. Be sure to put if their request is spiritual or physical, and put their full name is best. And then on Tuesday, and all these studies occur at 6:30. And again, this is Pacific Standard Time. So 6:30, there is the book study with Divine Light on the Canvas of the Infinite. Then on Wednesday, there's the study of the Heaven and Hell book by Allan Kardec. It's one of the codification books. And on Thursday, we have Living Spring, except every second Thursday of the month, the group tries to meet in person if possible in the Sacramento area. And then today, of course, we have our service at 10. And then this evening at 6:30, we are studying the book The Messengers, which is one of the Andre Luis in the Andre Luis series. And I don't know if anybody else has any other announcements they would like to share at this time. If not, then I will gladly introduce our speaker today. Kiki Feresin was raised in a Spiritist family that taught her the study of the gospel since she was a little girl. While working on her inner transformation, Kiki seeks opportunities to serve and to put into action lessons taught by Jesus and the good spirits. Her mantra is accept with gratitude, believe with conscience, and work with love. Kiki is a member of the Bezerra Spiritual Healing Center and the secretary of the BSH Board of Directors, and she's now living in Arkansas. But thank God for Zoom. We're all here together. And so Kiki is going to share her presentation with us this morning. And so I will turn it over to you, Kiki. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sister. Let me share my screen because today we have a very interesting topic. So I put some slides together. So today we are following the study of the Spirit's book, and we are reading a part of the chapter 8 of part 2 of the Spirit's book, which is called Emancipation of the Soul. And we will be covering two sub-chapters. One is Spirit Visits of Living Individuals and Concealed Transmission of Thought. Anyone who would like to jump in, add any context, please feel free to do so. I found very interesting the name of the chapter, Emancipation of the Soul, because this is the part of the book that the spirits on high are teaching us how can we experience all the faculties from our spirit while the spirit is still incarnate. Right? So it's very interesting. We will be focusing, this is focused on the experiences out of body while we are sleeping. But I bring a very, very brief part of an explanation that came in the book, in the realms of mediumship, because while there was a mediumship service, it explains a lot about how the soul works and how everything is connected. But this is specific to the emancipation of the soul while sleeping. So we will do a very quick recap of the first sub-chapter, which is called Sleep and Dreams. So if you are interested to read more about it, it's going to be on questions 400 until 412. We will talk about the spirit's visit on living individuals and the concealed transmission of thoughts. So a quick recap of the most important topics that we will be also revisiting during this study today. So first is the spirit is always tied to the body, even when it's in this free state during the sleep time. So one thing that it's important is that the spirit will be free, will be able to do whatever it desires, but it's still connected to the body. So there is no disconnection between the spirit and the body when the spirit, of course, is incarnated. So it's interesting, because that's one of the reasons why we have all the dreams, and this is also explained here in this chapter. The other thing is that the sleep is the rest of the body. The spirit is never inactive. Even if we don't remember what happened during our sleep, our spirit has done something. And we will see that we have means to choose what we want our spirit to do. But one thing that never happens is a spirit to stay inactive. Only the body rests and the spirit go do something. The dreams are proof that the spirit is partially free during the sleep. And there are many opportunities for the spirit during this time. It's some called second life, but it's not a separate life. It's just a continuation of what the spirit is living, but out of the body. It's an experience out of the body. And it can remember the past. Sometimes the spirit can even see the future, and they can communicate with spirits in either this world or another world. So it's total freedom for the spirit, and the spirit can do can have many experiences while it's out of the body. And then I think it's interesting that they bring this concept of intelligent sleep, which is something that I would love if we could explore the next slides, thinking about how we can foster this intelligent sleep. Because if what we are seeing is that our spirit can keep living and experiencing and talking and visiting and do all this interesting opportunities, what do we want to do during our sleep? So I would love if we could go through the next slides with this in mind. Okay, so now starting the part where we will read about the spirit's visit on living individuals. One thing that it's very interesting is that, as I said, during the liberation of the soul, during the sleep time, the spirit life takes precedence over the physical life. So it's very interesting because, as I said, there are some people who could say that this is like a double life, but it's not double. It's exactly the same. Everything that we experience during the out of body state, we will bring in many different types of intuition, experience, feelings, emotions. And it's interesting because sometimes we wake in such a good mood, and sometimes we do not. And this is all related to what we have experienced during the sleep time. But one thing that it's important is that always the spirit life will take precedent over the physical life. And as more awareness that we as incarnate have of what we can do, or how we can use our senses and our faculties, the more we will have understanding of what happened to our spirit while we were in this state. So it's interesting because we should think that it's not two separate lives, but two phases of one life. So let's understand how we can explore that. An interesting thing that they told us is that one can visit their friend and not be aware of their relationship when awake, when they are meeting or they are talking. So I'm pretty sure that I've visited all of you, if not most of you, many times, because I miss you all so much. But we do not always, we keep that memory. But this is what we keep inside of us. This is that special feeling when we feel about someone. If we are missing or if we are need to talk to that person, we can use this time for us to approach them. One of the things that is important is that happens for the good and that happens for the bad. So let's say that we spent the whole day swearing someone because the person did something, or even if it was not the whole day, but that stuck in the back of our mind. We have to be careful, because when we free our spirit, the spirit will take over, as we saw in the previous slide, will take over whatever we did, or whatever we are thinking with our human reasoning, I would say. So we have to be careful with that, because we can very easily approach that person because of the law of affinity. So even if we are not intending to go and visit that person, because we are in tune with them, we can approach them without even realizing what we have created. So we must be very, very careful with this faculty, because it's easy, it's done, and we can do that. And one of the things that they also teach us in this question is that we may have friends in another country without even knowing it. We can visit our friends, our relatives, acquaintances, and anyone who can be of use to our sleep. This is extremely common, and we carry this visit almost every night. So again, once more, important for us to know what we do during this sleep. And then one interesting question that that Allan Kardec asked is, what is the purpose of these nightly experiences if we do not remember them? And then what the spirits told us is that the intuition remains with you while you're awake. So they can come in many different forms. They can come in form of an intuition, they can come in form of an idea, or in form of an emotion, or something that will prompt us to be in tune with what happened in the past, during the sleep time. And as I said, the more we develop our conscience, the more we develop the awareness of these faculties, the easier it's going to be for us to remember. I even remember once Tanya mentioned a routine that she has when she wakes up. She washes her hand before doing anything, and I found that very interesting, because if we put ourselves to work during the nighttime, as some of the students here, this is something that we all do, right? Like, we ask for us to be of service, and we go. It doesn't mean that we will always have good experiences. I would say the opposite. We are always supporting someone. So when we come back, this washing hand, I think it's interesting because it will mentally support us to also wash away anything that is not needed for us to keep our day. And then if for whatever reason we keep that feeling of pity or compassion, or something that we saw that was not super pleasant, that was needed for us to see, then it's a good moment for us to just wash that away and enable us to start the day with a good mood, with a good spirit, with open mind. So important is that we might not remember them, but it is sticking in our soul. And I think this concept is extremely important for us to keep in mind, to reflect, because this is also part of whenever we encounter someone and that person is not in a good mood, we don't know what happened. So I think it's important that we keep in mind for us to be compassionate, not only to ourselves, but also to everyone else, because everybody is battling on their own needs. So be compassionate with people, even if it's really early in the morning and they are in a very, very bad mood. We don't know what might have happened to them. So compassion, compassion, compassion. One of the interesting questions that Allan Kardec asked is, can incarnates trigger spirit visits to happen? So can they say to themselves right before they fall asleep, say, I am going to visit whoever today, and then go? And then the answer is that this only applies to those who have already reached some certain of perfection, some certain degree of perfection. And that's because it is difficult to follow a plan while awake, because human life is of little interest to a spirit when it's free from a matter, which means that it's hard for us to tell our spirit what we want the spirit to do if the spirit has different triggers than when we are in the incarnate life. Because during this freedom of the spirit, they give free rein to their passions. They can remain inactive to their progress if they want, but whatever it is in the back of their mind, this is what the spirit will do. So even if we say, I want to work, but at the end of the day, we do not want to go work. We are not super interested in be charitable, and all we want to do is to, I don't know, do whatever, just free our passions. This is what will happen, because our spirit don't see these consequences whenever it's out of the when it's out of the body. And then when we come back tired, we come back in a bad mood, we come back with bad ideas. That's what happens. So if we do want to make our spirit do something during the sleep time, we have to create awareness. We have to create awareness. And this is awareness. It's not only the awareness of the faculties, but this is also awareness of who we are and who we want to be. It is to work in our inner transformation, as we were seeing in our last class. It is to work on understanding which are the devices that we have that we want to get rid of them. Do we really want to get rid of them? How do we do that? So during this time, it's it's an interesting moment for us to ask for support from our mentors. So for instance, one of the things that I pray for my daughter with her is, whenever she's asleep, that her spirit can go to schools so she can learn. And I ask that I go with her so we can learn together, we can grow together as individuals and as families. So this is, oh, I'm sorry, my voice is just terrible today. Excuse me. So this is just an example of how we can work in these faculties without necessarily exploring the faculty itself, but what comes behind that, the inner transformation, the inner awareness, understanding who we are, understanding who we want to be, which are the resources available. And I think that this is one of the most interesting insights that this chapter gave to me, is to understand the resources that God gave us for us to keep evolving, not only in our earthly mental state, but also in our spirit state, to get this awareness, to get to understand, to have curiosity about how we can be better. So this is all available to us every single night. I would say every single day, every single night. And as I mentioned to you, I wanted, so these are mostly, or these are specific for the sleep time, right? But the concept behind it remains, if you are in a trance, if we are meditating, or if we are working as a mediums. So I wanted to bring, I'm sorry that this slide is full of text. Please bear with me, because the learnings are extremely important. But there is this specific part of the book, In the Realms of Mediumship, and it's part of the chapter An Out-of-Body Task, where they are going to explain what happens to Antonio, which is the medium, and they have Clementino, the mentor, working and supporting Antonio for this out-of-body task, and Hilario is one of the assistants that is supporting all of that. And the one who is bringing this narrative to us is André Luiz, who is the author of the book, psychographed by Chico Xavier. So what André Luiz tells us is that while he's being Antonio, while Antonio's inert physical body rested, because just a bit of context, this was a mediumistic meeting, and Antonio fell asleep, and he fell asleep on purpose because he had a task to be done. So André is telling us that while Antonio inert physical body rested, he appeared before them, the spirits, before us, fumbling and surprised as a strange replica of himself. Besides appearing larger, his right side was bluish in color, whereas his left side was orangey. I realized that this contact produced a notable difference. The corporeal body was instinctively swallowed certain bands of energy that caused an obvious irregularity in his perispirit, absorbing them in a manner incomprehensible to me. Now, let's just digest this part a little bit, because what he's saying is he's explaining that when he fell asleep, his perispirit was visible to the spirit and it was taking another shape, another form. And the reason why is because when this happened, immediately he started absorbing energies that was surrounding him. So he immediately started to manifest that through his perispirit. So again, once more, another very important reason why we have to be careful when we fall asleep, because we have to understand what is the energy that we are creating for ourselves. So those habits that sometimes we have, that we read things in the phone before we go to sleep, what are we reading? We have to be careful with that, because that is creating the environment, and whenever we fall asleep, our spirit will absorb energy from that. And then he continues. At first, his perispirit or astral body was clothed with the vital effluvia that ensured the equilibrium between the soul and the corporeal body. These effluvia together are known as the etheric double, formed by neuropsychic emanations, meaning coming from his mind, that belong to the physiological field. Thank you for understanding me. For that reason, these emanations cannot achieve a greater separation from the physical body, meaning they are still connected, as we saw. They are still tied from body and spirit. For that reason, these emanations cannot achieve a greater separation from the physical body, is slated as they are for disintegration, as happens to the corporeal vessel as the time of the renewing death. So that is just going to happen when the body definitely dies. But then comes another interesting thing. To better adjust to our ambient, Antonio, the medium, has returned those energies to his motionless body, thereby ensuring the necessary warmth to its cell, as well as disencumbering himself as much as possible to the work that awaits him. I don't know how many of us have had mediumistic experiences, but sometimes the body can stay really cold. It's really interesting, because sometimes it can get really, really cold while we are in the work. And this is one of the reasons, because it's still working on balancing the energy. And here Andrea Luiz is explaining to us how we have the ability to bring back to our body some of that energies to warm ourselves, and in the same time create balance for the spirit to really go and do the work that needs to be done, or experience whatever needs to be experienced. And it's interesting that they say that if a human researcher were to strike the area where the medium spirit is located, Antonio, the medium, would immediately register the pain of the blow and would complain about it using his physical mouth, because although free of the somatic vehicle, the body, he is still in communion with it through the fluidic tie. Again, showing that the body and the spirit are completely aligned, and whatever the spirit feels, it is going to come to the body. Whatever happens in the body is going to follow the spirit, and we need a lot of support for us to be able to separate both. Now, the perispirit is composed of malleable elements that obey the command of the thought. Look how beautiful. They obey the command of the thought, whether it arises from our own imagination or the imagination of minds stronger than ours, especially when our will thoughtlessly surrender to the domination of tyrannical or wicked spirits dwelling in the darkness. So, friends, this is again showing us that we were just talking about this, right, Teresa? Our will is our strongest power. And we all know how hard it is sometimes for us to really focus. I think it's interesting that also Sunshine brought that um, during the opening prayer, because to dominate our thoughts, to dominate our mind is really, really hard. But this is an exercise that the more we do, the more we are going to master what we do from our life without those interferences from the outside. Unless we want that interference to happen, that influence to happen, and then this is specific to what we are aiming to do with those influences. So again, I didn't mean to deviate our conversation, but I did want to bring this part of the lesson because I think it explains to us how much or how important it is that we are mindful of what happens to our body, of how we are treating our thoughts, or how we are creating the environment before we go to bed, before we fall asleep, because this is going to enable us to have a not good, but it will enable us to have a useful or unuseful night of sleep. And then they keep talking about the bonds of friendship that we create, old or new. And those bonds often bring together spirits who are happy to enjoy each other's company. And this is and I just wanted to follow that lesson from the mediumistic work from here, because the work that Antonio was going to do was to visit a discarnate friend, but he needed to be prepared for that visit. And this is what enabled them to meet. This is what enabled them to have the time that they needed to have together. And this is one of the things that we want to do. And sometimes we just tell ourselves, I do want to visit whoever, but we have to be prepared for that. Of course, and not only us, the other person also needs to be ready for that. So if we do not know what type of preparation we need to have for us to go there, that's totally fine. But we have means to ask for our mentors, for the spirits of for the benefactors of good, to help us, to guide us, to be prepared for the type of visit that we are aiming to have. It is doable, friends. I think it's freedom when we look at the opportunities that we have while our spirit is not held in our body. But it's not done by, we have to have a structure. We have to have things enabling us to do that. So we can, but we have to follow some guardrails, I would say, for that to happen. There was an interesting question that Allan Kardec asked. He says, if we believe that one of my friends had died and this were not true, could I meet my friend as a spirit and discover that he or she is still alive? Would I keep that memory? Would I know what happened to him? And then the spirits on high tell us that as a spirit, you could see a friend and learn the truth about their situation. And we could preserve an impression of that. And all of that, so those are two things, right? So one is, can we visit someone? Yes, we can. Can we know the truth? Most likely, yes. Can we retain that truth? Depends. And that depends also, one of the things that they say is that it also depends, let me tell you exactly what they say. If the belief in the death of that friend had not been imposed on you as an attunement, you might preserve an impression of your friend's existence, just as you may preserve that of his or her death. Meaning, remember that in a couple of slides, we were just saying that there are minds that could be stronger than ours. So depending on how aware we are of the environment and the people that we are meeting during the night, that can be stronger in our mind, and that can create impressions that we may carry. So that is extremely important if we are trying to, get answers about something. We just have to persevere and to be very patient, because sometimes we have other spirits who are trying to tell us otherwise than the truth. And if we are not comfortable with that, if our heart is telling us the opposite, or something that still keeps us searching for the truth, then maybe that's one of the reasons, because we might have been receiving impressions from a mind stronger than ours. So just for us to be careful on that end as well. But it is possible for us to know the truth about something. That's really interesting, right? And then we start looking at the concealed transmission of thought. And then one of the questions that that Allan Kardec asks is, how come a person, like, how come the same idea, like a discovery, for instance, can occur in multiple places at the same time? So the answer is that our spirit often reveal to other spirit the object of our thoughts and reflections before we went to sleep, without our being aware of it. Meaning, we are already sharing our thoughts, because our thoughts do not need words. We need words. We need to tell what we are thinking, but our mind does not. And when we are in the spirit state, we also do not necessarily need words to share our thoughts and our ideas. So this is how things get spread. One of the things that they say in this answer is that idea is in the air. It's kind of a figure of speech. And I don't know if that is a figure of speech here in the US, but it's very much in Portuguese. It's very much in Brazil. We say, I don't know, there is this idea in the air that is bouncing in my head once in a while. So this is a figure of speech. And they say that this figure of speech is much closer to the truth than we realize, because everyone unconsciously helps spread it. And this can be really good. This can be really bad. So that's, again, one of the biggest reasons why we have to be extremely careful with what type of media we are reading, like what type of news we are consuming, what type of ideas we are spreading. Because the more that we consume negativity, the more our thoughts will dwell on that, and the more we'll be spreading that idea. I'm not saying for us not to know what's going on in the world. That's not what I mean. But most definitely be aware of, whenever we go to sleep, the thoughts that are in our mind while awake are going to keep reverberating to other spirits, for the good and for the bad. And that's how the same idea, that's one of the reasons why the same idea is spread to other spirits. That's how sometimes the people also absorb the ideas that are put on them while they are sleeping. If you had the opportunity to read any spirit book that teaches us the meetings that happens during the sleep, or during any spiritual meeting, there are hundreds and thousands of people, of spirits that are participating to a meeting. Everybody will keep with that understanding, whatever message came from that nature. And that's how everything is going to be spread also in the physical plane. So it can come from the spiritual realm to the physical. It can go from the physical to the spiritual realm. And it's interesting that in the next question, they say that a spirit radiates around in every direction and can communicate with other spirits even when awake, although this is much more difficult to do. So first of all, they are teaching us that the thought it will keep going. Whatever we are thinking, it is flowing, it is radiating, and it can or cannot touch other spirits even when we are awake. So I'll give you an example. When we are talking to someone and that person starts to argue or something, and immediately we block our minds and then we start praying. when we are in the middle of a discussion, we're not going to necessarily say, oh, hold on a little minute, let me just pray. That's not going to happen. But we are here talking with a person, and our mind is praying. That is helping us to shift a little bit. That is really hard to do. But at the same time, it is possible to be done with awareness, with degrees of control of our mind, control of our thoughts. We can do that. We can all do that. It's just a matter of practice. It's a matter of exercising where our focus is, and then be able to shield or to change the environment where we are. This is one of the beautiful examples coming from St. Francis of Assisi when he says, be the light. Oops. You need to see it. Yeah. Be the light wherever we are. Sometimes, not always we have the opportunity to stop and pray. Not always we have the opportunity to talk. Remember, St. Francis of Assisi even said, preach the gospel all the time, use words when necessary. So it should not be necessary for us to use words all the time. First of all, because what he's aiming is for us to be a living example of the gospel. Second, because for us to speak with another spirit, not necessarily we need words. So wherever we are, we can emanate positive thoughts. We can change the environment where we are. It is difficult, but it's doable. It comes with the exercise, with the practice, doing that over and over and over. And then the last question that we are going to study today is about, when we have the same thought, but while we are fully awake, and we are talking to someone and the person says exactly what we wanted, what you were thinking, how that happened? That was the question that Allan Kardec asked. And he says, like-minded spirits may communicate their thoughts to each other even when the body is not asleep. Meaning, again, not necessarily talking to each other, but there is such an attunement between the two that one can understand another without words. And they say that we could say that they speak the language of the spirits, because again, the language of the spirits does not necessarily need words. They just need to be able to understand each other's thought without necessarily having to speak, without necessarily having to say. This was the study that I wanted to share with you all today. The next chapters are going to be around lethargy and catalepsy, what happens during apparent death, and this is what we will learn in the next couple of Sundays. But what I wanted to finish our study today is, again, for us to be mindful of the resources that we have available and to make good use of it. When we realize the marvelous things that God graces us with, we unveil the best in life and the best in us. Because as we know, God has not asked for us to be perfect, but requests us to be better each day. And we know that it's not easy. We know that all of us have challenges and have difficult moments, and we know that all of them are for our growth, but not necessarily we succeed in every single step. But even though there is this merciful God that is looking at us and giving us in every single minute of our life the opportunity for us to be better. So let's be mindful about that. Let's understand, what do we want to do during our sleep time? Let us understand what we are enabling ourselves to do during our sleep time. It's all in our hands, or better saying, in our thoughts. It's how we dominate that. So I pray that all of us can have those reflections, understanding how we can do better to ourselves and to others. And I definitely pray for peace on earth, and that peace starting within our heart. So I hope this was a good learning session for all of us.
Thank you, Kiki. It's so funny to me, that last slide. I've seen it before. And so I'm like, did we do is a preview or, beforehand and sleep? I don't know. But thank you.
Love it.
Always beautiful presentation, very clear, very concise, very direct, and always backed with a lot of love. And I think that's what I want to thank you for the most today, is that reminder when I wake up in the morning. And, not so much when I feel great and like, wow, where was I last night? It's those times when I wake up and I'm like, what happened? That, yeah, because I oftentimes, you know, this information slips my mind, or, um, I find myself coming back to it during the day, like, what's wrong with me? Why am I so out of sync? And it's so good to remember this is the time to pray. This is the time to be gentle with it oneself. And as you kept repeating, compassion. So thank you so much for bringing this message this morning. And we are now open for questions, comments. And if you aren't comfortable sharing, any um, question, you can write it in the chat. And I want to just point to you that Tanya made a comment about even in another planet. So I'm sure this was in a particular point in the conversation. All right, so feel free.
I thank you, Kiki. Wonderful talk and great reminder. So important. The intelligent sleep. So we set the intention for our night, right? And I want to echo Teresa too. I just spent 2 months in an Airbnb, and my nights were dark, and I just couldn't. It was just every night I was pulled down, and night sweats and turbulences, and it's just like this cloud over me. And I sensed a lot of spirits around me, and yeah, somehow I couldn't get a handle on it very well. And now I'm in my new place, and it's all just, I sleep. It's like whipping cream. It's soft and sweet. And I wake up, like, even if I go to bed and I have some thoughts from the day that I transpire, I wake up, it's just like, it's just beautiful. Nobody has ever lived in this space. So I'm the first one too, and I can really help set the stage. So it's so true, the importance of our intention, of the prayers we pray before we go to bed, as you said, and also to deal with whatever elements are in your space, particularly when you bounce around sleeping in other people's spaces. It's very challenging. It can be. And then, of course, there's many realms that we operate in. And yeah, so thank you. Thank you so much for your talk. I loved it.
Of course. And sister, you just reminded me of two things. One is, whenever we go to sleep, there are two things. One is, what are our intentions? And second is, what are our actions? Because it's nothing if we have a good intention first to have a good night of sleep, but we do not set the stage, as you said. This is extremely important, that we set the stage for us to like free our spirit and let the spirit do whatever it has to. But there's another thing too, is that sometimes we are put into positions for us to help, and we are definitely supported while that happens. And I'm pretty sure that while that was hard for your body to awake the next day, you were definitely supported while you were sleeping, because definitely you were put there for you to support the spirits that were in there. And I remember very clearly, once I was having I had a very dear relative that was going through a difficult moment, and I wanted to help him. And I was asking for my mentor to allow me to help however I could. And I had this dream that I was in my house and this relative was coming, but I can't even remember that much, but he was coming and he was heavy and he was having a lot of obsessors with him. And my first reaction was to hold him and hug him. But when I was doing that, I was pulled out literally, I was put out and I woke up. And I woke up when with my mentor saying, you have to be ready before you do those things. You cannot just do that. And this study just is just reinforcing how important it is that, do we want to be at service? Yes, we have to know how to be ready for that. So before going to any endeavor, let's ask for our mentors to support us, because the support will help, as it went for you, sister, as it went for me. And godly, I was pulled out before any bad thing happened. But those are the resources.
Yeah, thank you.
And
Yeah.
hello, everybody. So what I like the most in your presentation, always very important, and this is a lovely topic that I love it. I have practically dream every day. So when I said to other dimension, there's you said sometimes we travel even to other countries to meet some people, and then say I have a fun time or I have a good time. I'm like I wake up with missing someone. I miss some being someplace. And I'm saying even in other planets, because remember, Kardec said we may come from many other planets, many other experiences around the universe. So other thing that I like, very important that you said, when you pray and make your intention to go to study, but if you do not making any effort, if you're not doing it during your lifetime here consciously, and just one word cannot be just magical. I love it. I love it. Something that is we miss it. We want to do so many things, but aren't we doing it during the conscious life when we are awake? No. So last night I have this morning I would say our brother Mark is going back across the country, and he stopped last night to bless us with his visit. So we talk about a lot of things before going to bed, and this morning I had a dream. In my dream, someone knocked the door, and it was Dr. Paul and another person. And knocked the door. So we were so surprised. The other person was surprised too. So she said, are you sick? Are Greg sick? Why Dr. Paulo took me to here? She lives in another country. And she said, and I said, no, is everybody okay? Maybe he wanted you to see who is visiting us. So it was so real, so real, so real. It was amazing. So I love it. I love it. So we have to be conscious, and it's a very good exercise when you wake up, take notes. We say before you wake up, don't open your eyes. Try to remember where you were and ask your soul or your spirit, what is the message that I bring from where I was? Because for sure we live double life. My husband has vivid these dreams too. Other day, he told Mark Carlos yesterday, I think they are preparing me to die because my dream is more vivid. Every time is more vivid. And I was with my mom, I was with my father, people who was in my life who passed away. And I have this woman talk to me very friendly, like I know her, but I don't remember who she is. That is example, no? And I said, Greg, don't forget, we live a double life. It's amazing. Thanks so much for your presentation, sweetheart.
Thank you.
You know, what I want to say is the intuition. You know, you go to bed at night and you wake up in the morning and you're inspired to take on something, to change something, to look at or review a direction that you were going in that may not be good for you. And it'll just keep revealing, it'll keep coming back and forth around your mind until you get the right idea about it. And sometimes it happens to me early in the morning. It might be as early as 4 in the morning. And I have to review. That's the word I was looking for. Review it over and over. And oftentimes, it's good to review your day at night, but for me, it's always in the morning. I feel pitiful for something I done said or I didn't did, and it's just, God. And there's no escaping it. I can't say I'm just gonna go to sleep and forget about it. No, I'm rejuvenated, I'm alert, and here it is. I said, oh my God, there's no way of getting around it. I gotta deal with it. So, I mean, I think the whole thing is beautiful, how the spirits work with us, how they try to educate us, how they try to keep us moving forward on our journey. There's always that inspiration, and that intuition that you were talking about. But anyway, I do appreciate this talk, Kiki, but I love you anyway. So what can I say? Thank you, dear.
It's a beautiful lesson.
Are there any more comments or questions? If someone could mute the background noise in someone's vicinity, that'd be great.
Listen to
Okay. Okay then, if anyone, no other comments, then we will move on to the second part of our service this morning, which is the healing and virtual passes. So we will take a 3-minute break, and we do remind everyone to bring some water because we know that the water is spiritualized by the spirits who come to the service. And that's great, Kathy. Look at Kathy's big, huge water bottle there. I think that's what's sitting in front. And we will rejoin at that point. So, and bring any pictures or names of people, family members, friends, community members that